What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now today I've got 3 fantastic nuclear revenge stories for you. This is nuclear revenge. Revenge stories do not get any more serious and any more emphatic than this. Without further ado, make sure you're subscribed to the channel or you've hit the follow button if you're on a podcast platform. Sit back, relax, and let's get into the first story. Decline to pay me after I help you pass your exam. Have fun getting deported. So, this happened a couple of years ago during COVID when everything was online. A mutual friend, let's call him Dan, reached out to me, absolutely desperate. He was on the verge of getting deported because he'd already failed his coding exam twice. One more and he wouldn't be able to stay in the country. He knew I was good at coding and begged me to take the exam for him. He told me how his entire future depended on it, how he had no options left, etc. Feeling a bit sorry for him, I agreed, on the condition that he would pay me $500 for doing it. He agreed immediately, so I spent a couple of weeks preparing. The exam was proctored over Zoom, and we set it up so that I could control his computer remotely while he pretended to take the exam himself. We pulled it off without a hitch, and he passed the exam. Afterwards, we went out for drinks to celebrate. We each paid our own share because I didn't want him deducting anything from what he owed me. Now here is where things went downhill. He gave me $100 up front and promised to pay the remaining $400 in a couple of weeks after he sorted out his graduation stuff. Weeks turned into months and he kept dodging me with excuses. After 6 months of this, it became clear that he wasn't going to pay me back. I gave him multiple warnings to pay me or I'll report him, but he kept taking it lightly and blocked me. I've got to interject here, guys. When somebody has this much power over you, knowing that you've cheated in your exam because they did the exam for you, surely you have to pay them what you agreed. It's just too risky. Anyway, let's carry on. I was fuming. I helped him out and he completely ghosted me after getting what he wanted. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. First, I reported him to his university for academic misconduct. I explained in detail how I was the one who took the exam for him and I provided the evidence to back it up. They investigated and failed him retroactively, which meant, of course, he couldn't graduate. Since his visa was tied to his student status, this basically screwed him over completely. Some context. It was an anonymous tip-off to the college with a fake email with all the proof. They called him and gave him a chance to retake the exam on the spot, but the guy never studied and failed at the most basic stuff. But it didn't end there. He was still living in the country illegally, hoping to somehow fix things. I knew he had no way out, so then I anonymously tipped off the authorities saying there was an illegal immigrant involved in suspicious activity living in my area. They came, found out he was there illegally, and he got deported. Context. As for the deportation, I felt a bit scared in case he tried to hurt me in some way, so that's why I made sure he never set foot in this country again. Now, some mutual friends are saying that I went too far, that it was a petty move to ruin his entire life over $400. On the one hand, I feel like he deserved it for trying to scam me. Now, I wouldn't have minded if he came clean, saying that he doesn't have the money or financial capacity to pay, and that he was sorry. I would have let the matter go without a hitch. I actually posted on another subreddit, r/amithejerk, but I started getting death threats. I feel like you guys here wouldn't mind this. And then for those of you listening on podcast platforms, OP has added a little devil emoji at the end. And you know what, OP, you're absolutely right. I don't just not mind it, I love it. Yeah, as I said during this post, I mean, you're just an idiot if you think that you're going to get away with something like this and then not pay the person what you told them to pay. It's so dumb. They have all the power in their hands to just say to you, like, are you joking? I'm obviously just going to go and tell on you because you've not paid me. By the way, this person's taking a risk as well. I want to make that abundantly clear. OP is not like just doing this for free in the literal sense and also in the metaphorical sense, you know? You're not allowed to do this. Now, it's probably not illegal. Of course it's not, but I don't know. I feel like something could happen potentially to you if you were found to actively be helping out someone else cheating in an exam. Maybe not, but whatever. Obviously, ethically, it's wrong. So there is some risk from OP there. And yeah, just again, all I can think is just it's so dumb to just know that somebody has all the evidence against you, but then not pay them and just try and get away with it. I suppose the sort of person that would do this in the first place and cheat this badly to try and pass a test would probably be the same sort of person that would try and con one of their friends out of a lot of money. Maybe it adds up, actually. Okay, now moving on to our next story. Kill my cat, get smashed. This is a story from my childhood. I lived in a small suburban neighborhood in the 90s. We had 2 Dachshunds we kept in a backyard fence, and 3 cats that just roamed our 1/8 acre corner lot in my subdivision. Of the 3 cats, Magic was the matriarch. She was a big fat black cat that didn't really run from any neighborhood cats or dogs. Our neighbors across the street had a pit bull that they would let roam the neighborhood. It was never aggressive towards me or my friends, but also was not a friendly dog. We just stayed away from it when playing in the woods. One day, that pit bull charged my cat while I was in the yard playing. It began to whip its head back and forth, shaking Magic, and I ran in to get my dad. We didn't have a gun for home defense. My dad kept a 4-foot long galvanized steel rod that was about 1 inch thick next to the door though. I've never seen him move that fast. He was on that dog in about 5 seconds flat. I remember seeing him strike the dog probably 3 times before it let go of Magic. My dad said, "Come here, OP, we are going to the neighbor's house." He was fuming, shaking. When I got closer, I could see that the dog's skull was completely smashed. You could see blood and grey matter. It was gnarly. Its eye socket was also smashed. He picked up the dead dog and walked with me to the owner's house. The man answered the door and said, "What did you do to my dog?" And my dad said, "The same goddamn thing I'm gonna do to you if this happens to one of my kids." They never got another dog. We never saw them again, and they moved about a year later. Now, Opie's added a little edit here onto the end of this one, saying, "I might be lost. I felt like the nature of dragging the bloody dog back to the owner and threatening them with the same for killing the cat was revenge, but maybe not." That's after a few comments below were saying that this wasn't really revenge, it just was animal cruelty. Let me know what you guys think about that, by the way. OP continues, "I also see the comments about animal cruelty and being a psycho or something when I've posted this story on Reddit before. I don't think you all understand how much this marked me." To be fair, OP's still thinking about this, writing about this event, I don't know how many years later, but this happened in the 90s, so what, 20 years minimum, probably 30 years. I focused on facts in this post, not feelings, because the feelings are very painful, they continue. "It was 30 years ago now, wow, there we go, and I can still remember very minute details of the scene, and I remember going on a roller coaster, from terrified that I was going to die, to scared that my dad was going to die, to scared and then sad about Magic and the dog, to scared about confronting the parents, and then to a deep mourning for my favourite cat. Even to this day, it's the best cat I've ever had. I'm not sure why you'd expect this to be some kind of morality tale. It's just what happened." Yeah, no doubt in my mind, this is definitely revenge and it's definitely nuclear. I mean, the dog killed your cat, your dad killed the dog and showed it to the owner saying, if that happens to one of my children, this is going to happen to you. I think that's a definition of nuclear revenge. I suppose you could argue that this sort of story is probably a little bit more suited to r/traumatize them back, but it's much of a muchness, really. It's definitely nuclear revenge. As for the story itself, yeah, terrible thing to happen. All I can really say is poor Magic, and I'm so sorry to you, OP, that this is still affecting you or has had such an effect on your life, to which, yeah, you're still traumatized by it, or at least think about it regularly often 30 years later. I guess that just shows, to be fair, why this revenge had to happen when it did. It's had that effect on you. Crazy. Okay, now moving on to our next story. This one is from 5 months ago, and some of you may have seen it already, some of you might not have done, but the reason I'm reading it today is because just the other day, a brand new update to it was posted. So let's read the original first. "Aunt broke my model kit, so I took away her everything." This whole thing started exactly a year ago, but just ended, and a friend told me to post here, so off we go. I live in Turkey, and as you know, southeast of my country was wrecked by a couple of giant earthquakes a year ago. My city was the epicenter, and while the house I lived in with my family wasn't destroyed, a lot of shelves got knocked off, and one of them was the one where I held my Gunpla kits. Out of all the kits I had, only one survived, an AmITheA that was heavily customized. I built it with my grandfather, who passed away a few years ago, so I was ecstatic it survived. A few months after everything had calmed down, my mother called her relatives for dinner. which included Aunt B. Now, the B doesn't stand for female dog here. Her name does start with the letter B. I can't remember what I called her a few months ago, but I'll call her Brenda today. She came alongside her son, who is 8 and is an entitled brat. While the adults were drinking coffee, this little brat barged into my room and demanded to play with my computer. Now, I refused, since I was editing a video for my college society and I had the camera on. Well, the brat went back crying to her mother, who came and started yelling at me. While I was dealing with her, her little brat climbed onto my desk, took my model kit, and immediately dropped it and stepped on it. The rest is just yelling, me swearing at them up and down, telling them they were going to pay for it, with her calling me a weirdo for still having toys and that she wasn't going to pay for anything. My mother at first thought about not making her pay to keep the peace, but when she realized it was the kit I made with my late grandfather, her father, she was angrier than I was and went out for blood. We took the case to a friend of ours who is a lawyer that specializes with in-family cases, and they told us since my camera caught it all, we would definitely win. But it was better to come to an agreement out of court in a settlement since it would be cheaper. I pulled out a price list of the kits I needed to make an exact replica of the one that was destroyed, and it came to just about $1,000, which came to about 25 to 27,000 Turkish lira with the exchange rate. Well, she refused, so we took her to court. She pulled all kinds of BS to not pay and delay, but the judge ended up making her pay $1,650 plus an order for her to pay any border taxes on the replacement kits alongside the court and lawyer fees. It completely screwed her savings, and her husband, who was already waiting for a chance to divorce, took it. When it all ended up, she had nothing and even lost custody of her brat to her ex-husband, and not only lost the down payment she had for a house, she lost all her savings and didn't get alimony from her husband. Am I happy her life got completely screwed? No, not really. But do I feel sorry that it happened? Not in the slightest. She and her crotch goblin screwed around and found out. It's that simple. I do feel bad for her husband though. He's going to be the one trying to make that brat into a normal person, and I don't envy it in the slightest. Now, as I said, some of you guys may remember that story from a few months ago, but at the time of recording, just 23 hours ago, we got the following update, and that is why I had to bring the story to you guys again. Well, the time the judge gave my aunt to pay what she owed me came and went, but she didn't make any payment at all. So we legally had to push the case into legal collectment. Cops went to her house, but she wasn't there. She was actually in her house, but didn't make any noise. So the cops had to leave and get a search permit to enter to look for her. They found her inside, having sold her everything, ready to illegally leave the country to not pay anything and start a new life abroad. When they were apprehending her, she attacked the cops, actually clawed the eye of one, causing permanent damage and adding multiple charges to her file. She was taken to court again, this time for more crimes, alongside not making a payment in time that the court told her to last time. I'm not sure if I can legally list all the things she was charged with, but in the end, she got 18 years and 9 months of jail time with no chance of parole until the 15th year. And yes, since she'd sold everything of hers to leave the country, the court took the amount she had to pay us, recalculated to today's tax numbers and exchange rates, before putting the rest of the money in an account that her son would get when he turns 18. Now, as for her brat, in the first post, I said that when her husband divorced her, he got custody. Well, the kid's personality was so bad that he took him to a psychiatrist who decided, because of my aunt's terrible parenting, he was showing personality issues. He is now in a pre-military boarding school for troubled kids, which he hates completely. As for the money, I'd love to say I used it to get the parts necessary to remake that kit, but I had to put it into a savings account. The government recently changed border tax systems, so the previous money became a substantial amount with the new numbers, like hilariously so. As much as I'd love to spend it all on Gunpla, I have to think about the future, so it's gonna stay in a savings account, getting fatter by the day until I graduate. Okay, so there we go. 18 years is pretty insane. I'm just reading through the comments here to try and understand whether or not that's legit or not, because 18 years does sound pretty ridiculous for what happened. But bear with me here. So somebody said, 18 years? Mental note, don't mess with you. And OP said, most of it was when she attacked the cops apprehending her. I think she got like 1.5 to 2 years for not paying. To be fair, in the Turkish criminal system, I could imagine that permanently damaging a cop's eye would be pretty insane jail time. I'm not sure it would be 20 years or 18 years in the UK, but you never know. You never know. I mean, comment down below, guys. In your country, wherever you're watching, how long do you think you get in jail time for that? Attacking and causing permanent damage to an officer is one of the worst things you can do. I mean, I know in the UK and in the US, for example, if you murder or kill, sorry, not murder, but kill a member of the police or the military or whatever, that is one of the most serious things you can do in terms of a sentence. So yeah, there we go. Pretty insane. And I remember last time you guys told me what gunpla was, so I looked it up, and now I know. So don't worry, I'm learning. Let me just go back to the comments, because I can search in my comment section gunpla or gunpla, and you guys told me it's short for Gundam plastic model. So it's in here now. Don't worry, I'll never forget on my life. But yeah, there we go. Crazy Revenge. Good update. Happy we had one, and it's even more serious than the original post. Phenomenal stuff.